So for this piece, I looked back at my original Inktober drawing and I looked at the color comp I did and realized I really like having the spirit be less physical, more of kind of a wispy thing. And I liked being able to see his toe distorted through the bottle. And so I'm going to go back to that effect. And so not exactly sure how we're going to build the spirit, but I'll trace it so I have it, but I think we're going to treat it differently than I originally thought. And I'm still playing with the placement of the feet in the background. So again, I'm going to draw them more than what we see here so that I have room to shuffle things around. And then the background, I'm going to actually do in Tyvek and use some of the textures that'll come out of that. So I'm not going to draw that because I'm going to leave it a lot more open for the play of the ink as we work on that. So I'm going to start with the feet just because that seems the most logical. And again, I'm going to draw the areas I don't see just to give it some shape and to give me some play. And unlike the other piece, I'm not going to treat the toes as separate elements. I may cut them if it feels like it needs kind of some more front and back, but I want to have it all as one big piece, which will feel very big when you're talking about one piece in a paper sculpture, which was part of why I chose to do this a little bit smaller than what I had initially thought. And I guess if it doesn't work out, we'll see that happening. And I keep checking up at my drawing that's up there because it helps me, because sometimes with the tissue paper it can be a little bit hard to see. And because these toenails are foreshortened, it makes them a little trickier. In fact, I think that big toe is foreshortened enough that I probably will treat it as a separate piece. Same with the toe beside it. When you know you're going to have some unusual bends and you want it coming out, that's what helps you decide that's going to be a separate piece. So I'll keep drawing the foot, but I'll maybe make a note just so I don't forget. Separate piece for the big toe and the index toe. And I'm not going to draw the other toes because I probably won't have it in the piece, but I'm just going to have enough material, I guess, paper material, that I can overshoot it if I need to. So it just kind of looks like a blob on the side there. Tissue paper. And then I'm going to draw the pants, and I want to treat each pants as a separate element because again, you're going to have some front and back. And some of the folds are going to come from literal folds in the paper. And so when I draw it, I have to draw it larger and a little less fine to what I've initially drawn, because as I fold it, there will be a physical element that takes the paper back in space, I guess. And so I need to account for the fact that this won't be a flat piece of paper, and I need to allow some of that give and take. And sometimes folds surprise you. They don't necessarily behave how you want them to. And then I have to think, I may, just in case, have a little piece of paper that goes behind it, almost like the fabric wrapping around. And so I'll draw that in here, because I always find it's better to have that in mind than be surprised down the road. And then on the right pant leg, going to, again, same thing, we're going to overdraw it, not by much, just by maybe 1/4 of an inch. Again, this is actually quite a big piece of paper. Sometimes I work a lot smaller, and I'm starting to appreciate the value of working smaller. But I did want to play with this being a close-up on things where the feet are actually part of the picture, but they're not the most important part of the picture. And then sometimes I'll hold it up and think, and say, I think I need to pull that up more. And some of this just comes on your own knowledge. You know that the cork is going to sit down into the bottle. I don't want it so much that it goes below that lip, but I am pulling it down a little bit. And I draw this line, and later on I'm going to score it, and I know that'll give me some dimensionality to it. The bottle, we're going to have a separate piece that actually comes out that forms the lip of the glass. And so you still have to think about your drawing and perspective. You do get some of that from the natural depth that you're creating in the paper sculpture, but it's not all from that. Some of it's also from your drawing. And so I've still drawn the lip of the bottle in perspective, so that it's receding in the distance. And then we're going to draw the bottle shape. And my bottle is not perfectly symmetrical, but it's supposed to be an old bottle, so I'm okay with that. I want some imperfection. Again, I'm going to kind of extend it beyond what I see so that I have that play in my layout. Bottle. Again, I've changed my mind on how I want the demon figure to be, but I'm still going to take the shapes so that I have them. And hair, you could treat hair in a lot of different ways. I'm going to treat it as a couple of main shapes, and then I'm also going to add a lot of linear elements through the embossing. And don't read too much into the fact that I made the demon female. That was just kind of what came to me. It's not meant as any kind of commentary. So it looks like I'll have 3 main kind of sections of hair that I'll break down further in embossing. And sometimes I'll clean up my line elements through my tracing. And I definitely clean it up through the cutting. For whatever reason, I can cut much, much more cleanly than I can draw. Probably because I have developed some lazy habits in my drawing. But for whatever reason, I cut more cleanly. Because I know this shape is covered in hair, I'm not too worried about what happens behind it, but I just add a little bit. And because I'm not going to build these as separate elements for the hand and the arms, so I'll just indicate it. And again, these are choices I have to make the whole time I'm working, and when I was starting out, I wanted someone to tell me how to make those choices. We all wish someone would just tell us how to do it. And nobody else can tell you how to do it. You're just going to have to make the choices and make mistakes. And sometimes the mistakes end up being things you can use down the road. And in a lot of ways, this is actually a very forgiving medium, because you can take out just one piece if the one piece is the mistake, and you can just replace that one piece, which is really nice, as opposed to, obviously digital would be the most forgiving, but traditional painting certainly doesn't give you that option. And now I'm just going to look, see if I forgot anything. Got the hair. And I'm thinking, I know some of the other things I'm going to indicate through other kind of materials and stuff. And so right now I'm just looking at the pieces that I have to cut out.